Charlie Kirk was predestined to go out the way that he did. In his Vedic astrological charts, not only can you see that his ideologies and beliefs put him in quite scary circumstances and cause him to have complete identity issues, but likewise, they do something that impacts his health. And now in a big 2025, you can see how that's come to fruition. You know what? Grab a cup of jar, get comfortable. I want to have a candid cosmic chit chat about how Charlie Kirk ultimately failed to rectify his karmic debts, but also karma was reinforced by the shit he was saying. Let's go, Hibiscuses. Now, in part 3, we're going to be analysing his sun placement. His sun is also his Atma Karaka. Now, Atma Karaka in Vedic astrology signifies the soul's highest priority in this reincarnation. So usually it brings forth these kind of focuses. So number 1, the soul is essentially trying to carve out an identity that isn't so heavily influenced by external factors or too pressurized by them. Number 2, it deals with the lesson that life is trying to train you to become a responsible leader. I would say a reasonable authority figure, and likewise understanding how to take responsibility for the influence that you have around you and, you know, your ecosystem, your community, your culture, all that jazz. And thirdly, which I found really interesting because there's not a lot on the internet about his father, but yeah, for us, it would show that there's significant karma between the child and the fatherly figure in its life. And often it can deal with them having a heavy influence of them or breaking away from their influence. But either way, emotionally and psychologically, it tends to be quite intensive. Now, on the other side of what does this Atmakaraka bring in terms of challenges, number 1, it deals with the person having to be in situations where they are socially disapproved of. Now, the second thing after that is it deals with learning how to take criticism and evolve past it. And I think thirdly, it also deals with power struggles with other authority figures. I'm going to keep this really simple. Ultimately, he failed to deal with the karmas and the work that's associated to his Atma Karaka. Do not think for a second, just because he entered a position of authority and influence, the karmas, the work has been achieved. No, it's about the quality of the actions that's associated to that position. And you're going to see as we go through the series, and even in this video today, how badly he failed and also why the karmas he met were reinforced due to that failure and basically becoming belligerent and refusing to learn certain lessons. Tell you all the time, astrology is simply a reflection of all your different karmas. There is nothing in this life you will ever achieve or keep on if it goes against your karmas and doing the work that's associated to them. Now let's have a look at what nakshatra his sun is in. So his sign is in a sign called Chitra, which is Virgo type 8 to 9. Now, interestingly enough, Sun in Chitra deals with the following. Number 1, it's trying to teach the person how to effectively interact and communicate with others. It often can show someone who's very driven to leave a mark on society. However, this is another placement that he has that shows internally he's very insecure as a person. He is constantly seeking answers, and what he finds is the more questions he asks, the more confused and unsure he feels of himself. And because he falls into the Virgo part of this sign, it essentially shows someone who looks smart, so shows a deep intellectual understanding, but there's no depth. Sure, perhaps certain level of information has been collected, but it's not being applied or understood properly. Next, let's consider the ruling deity of Chitra, which is Vishnu Kumar. He's essentially the divine architect, and ironically, he's first shown in our religious scriptures as creating weapons for war. What took out Charlie? This is where I want to get into kind of the more spiritual and the deeper stuff. So when you look at Chitra, right? As much as it is a smooth talker, a lot of our favorite rappers, actors, social media figures will be heavy in Chitra, right? It's very captivating speech. But there's a direct karma with these people that watch your fucking mouth, because what you speak will meet you in the end. Even when I was looking at it deeper, Chitra is actually associated to the Akashic records. So just to keep that really simple, Akashic records, if you like, just to visualize a massive fucking book that has every deed that you have ever done, from your past to what you're doing now and what you will do in the future. It's so interesting to me that as we go through this man's chart, how heavily it shows that his karmas will meet him based on his ideologies. Like everything he says is reinforced. Again, think of the irony about being pro guns and then being taken out by a gun. Think about saying all this derogatory stuff about black people, I would say specifically black women, and it's only a black woman after you've passed that's advocating for you. And ironically, it was a white person that brought the violence that you accuse and stereotype other communities of perpetuating. Even you could go as deep as this man originally was very pro-Israel, right? But essentially, who shot you? In many ways, when we look at Chitra, one of the deeper lessons they have is, to a certain extent, you are the architect of your future and your reality. So if you don't like it, look internally and see what you've been creating around you. Actually, one thing I keep thinking quite deeply about is how he weaponized Christianity to essentially peddle his horrific ideologies, even though they were contradictory to actual core Christian values. This is a reminder, 2025 is the year of the Great Humiliation. Ironically, it's a Mars-ruled year, which is also the ruling planet of Chitra, his sun sign. Oh, and a reminder, from 2025 to 2028, the karmic prison opens. So there's a huge amount of the earth that will be imprisoned by their ideologies and then, fucked up realities for them and their future descendants. But likewise, there are other people who are liberated from a prison that they've been kept in by their oppressors. I'll let you work out which one he applies to and which one you think you're in. Now, getting back to it, Chitra's a smooth talker, but again, because he's in the Virgo part, how do I put this? Wisdom is chasing him, but ultimately he was faster. Well, until he met certain circumstances. So look at it like this, right? This is obviously a very flimsy man. There is no true depth to him. It's just a lot of salesman tactics, if I'm honest. This man is not a great political thinker. I would go as far to say this is a political entertainer and leave it at that. Because let's even explore his expressions of Christianity and how he weaponized it for essentially entertainment purposes. Because all the shit he's saying goes against Christian values. So for instance, even the way he expresses Christianity, it's so clear to see it's really rooted in Christian nationalism, which again is linked to white supremacy. And it's like all his expressions or understandings of Christian teachings are so European centric. So say for instance, right, he was very fucking disgusting about critical race theory. He was often very against diversity, equity, inclusion. So he's doubling down on the biblical narratives that often are used to say like, oh, slavery is okay. Think about the very clear misogyny and sexism that he exudes. Well, fun fact, this directly goes against all Christian values. Jesus was essentially a brown Middle Eastern man living under occupied land who essentially was like, free the man, them and babes, and I'm against you merchandising the fucking church. But I think that's a whole separate conversation because we could talk about that for fucking days. Even think about how he went from being an advocate of free speech to then saying no, the government should interfere with people's conversations, their access to information and knowledge. Again, he used to be a believer in the separation between church and state, and look towards the end what the fuck he was promoting. He literally spent so much time celebrating the death of Palestinian people. I don't know if you know much about Jesus and the land which he comes from, but my God. Like, I'm sorry, everything he preaches goes against Christian values. And I'm not sure if it's because in America they're sold a different version of Christianity so they can normalize like slavery and exploitation of labor. But like, guys, I literally did religions, theology, philosophies for my undergrad. I practice dharmic faiths and all day long I teach about astrology and religion. So far from the fucking truth. And I've talked about this so many times. Religion is often used as a tool of fascism to enable and normalize its very nasty behavior. So look at this. His sun sits in his 8th house. Saturn is currently going through the 9 types of Pisces, which is in the 2nd house, which means there's a danger to life. So what this means was all the shit he preached was now going to physically start manifesting in his life and cause him terrible stress. Obviously, getting assassinated is terribly stressful. My point is, Sun in Chitra creates a really superficial person. And at some point, God has predestined it, regardless of the shit that's coming out of their mouths. They will have to experience a reality that is reflective of all their ideologies and the shit they were chatting. And fun fact, all the shit he was preaching, he did not believe in. It's about money, 8th house is shared assets and resources. He never thought he would actually have to face the reality of what he's saying. Karmas, bro.